Hello and welcome to Fallawsophy. I'm your host, Jennifer Fallaw-Doering, and tonight is episode 2 of the new team. Last week, I started a series on the interdimensional meditations that I do to retrieve information from the archangels, God, Jesus, Blessed Mother. I've been doing this for many, many years, but I decided to let everybody in on my journey because I was told that I would be getting a new team. And if you go to last week's show, the new team in the Golden City, you can start the series there. So last week we met the new team members, which were archangels, and Jesus, which has always been on the team. But so tonight I'm going to share with you, and each week, the meditations that I did all week long and the progress of me on my spiritual journey. I've been on it for a long time, but apparently I'm just getting started. So basically going to be story time for a while. Some of you have caught me on other shows. Last Friday I revealed some information because it was about the weekend. And so some of this will be review. But I'm going to go through all the meditations from last week, even if you've heard them before, and tell a more detailed story. I see that everybody is joining us here. Oh my gosh. I'm thinking this is either Faith or my friend Stephanie. So Jenny, will you be in my movie? That's something that happened back in high school. It's funny. But hello to everybody who's joining. I'm just going to talk for a little bit here until we get everybody on before I begin. Don't want anybody to miss any of this. So, looks like we've got Kim, Diane, James. Now, if you're coming in from Facebook, I can't see what your name is. It says Facebook user. And we are streaming to many different places right now. And Jolene's here. Charlene. Oh, Christine. Scott. So nice to see everybody here. So this morning on Real News Live with Mike Vera, I gave you some more information that I got in meditation yesterday, but I didn't tell you the story. Then I went back in today to see if I get anything else. And a lot of this, I'm a little apprehensive to share because this is like a very personal journey. And all of you guys on a spiritual journey understand that. You know that you do these meditations and you talk to your angels and your guides and God. It's a very personal thing. So a lot of this is going to be very personal. We've got some what people call gentel, which is information about what's going on in the world right now, mixed into that and what's coming. Because my primary goal with all of this is to bring hope to the people. And that was what I was asking for. And, I thought I was doing a pretty good job. And then apparently I need a new team. So, but that really is part of my spiritual journey and what I'm here to learn and where I'm going from here and what I'm going to offer to people. Because, I've just always kind of been that way. If I'm not making some kind of difference, if I'm not doing it for somebody else, why do it? I've always been that way. I think that's kind of why I went from working for other people to working for myself and doing for other people. So, I've been in jobs in my life where I knew I put 150% into it, but I knew nobody will remember my name, and it's not about like fame or anything, but nobody's going to really understand my contribution here. You know, I could be replaced. I learned early on in life, don't ever think you can't ever be replaced in a job, because you can. It may take 3 of them, which most of the time it did. So, along the way, I found myself here years and years and years. This spiritual journey's been going on, I don't know, 25 years. The meditations haven't been going on that long. We're going up on like 12, 15 years, something like that. So it's interesting that, you know, I'd go for such a long period of time doing the same thing, talking to the same archangels and stuff. And then suddenly I need a new team. I think it's where we are on the timeline of the world and what people are facing. And I've also started teaching people how to do what it is that I do, so that they can do it for themselves, really. Go find your own answers. Some people say, you know, why would you do that? You're going to put yourself out of business. Well, then I've done a good job. So I'll find something else, you know. But if anybody would, after the show, would like to contact me, or get some of those classes or reading or healing or anything like that, you can go to jenniferfallaw.com. Let's see where that is. Banner. Right there. You can go to jenniferfallaw.com. I want to get this stuff out of the way because what I'm doing with these shows basically is going to be for books later. And so what I'm doing is getting a video account of all of it. So it's not just piles and piles of me writing in spiral notebooks, you know, and it may just make it easier later for me to put that into book form. Okay, so I think we got enough people on right here now, so I think we're going to get started. Let's put the ugly glasses on so that I can see, because, you know, I'm in my 40s. You're in your 40s till you're not. And this is what is going to have to happen. You know what? I don't know what happened there, but yeah, clean that. So anyway, so in the last week's, the first episode of the new team, we talked about a golden city that I was taken to. Now, since visiting that city, it has come into better focus, and it is interesting. The architecture, it's interesting. The colors. It was originally just looked golden. I mean, like gold, but it's not. That was my perception, and that may have something to do with where I'm coming from, incarnated, projecting your consciousness to that place, and your perception of that, or the difference in dimensions, looking through the dimension to see it. But now it looks different. It's kind of sandy. It's kind of, and interesting, you know, it's like there are some like red hues, there are some black hues, there are, you know, a lot of honey color, dark woods, things like that. So in this city, there's a courtyard, and in the courtyard, there is a cobblestone courtyard, and there's a fountain in the middle of the fountain in the courtyard. So we're going to start. That's where I'm supposed to meet them each time I am trained. I don't know what I'm training for yet. We'll see. So on 5/18 is the first meditation. Today is 5/23/2022. I believe in this one, I met Gabriel and Michael in the field next to my tree where I normally meet them on the 6th level of heaven. And I took both of their hands, and they took me to the Golden City. And we stood in the courtyard. And So the team is Michael, Gabriel, Chamuel, Ramiel, Haniel, Zedekiel, and Jesus. And so in this meditation, we met in the courtyard, or they took me to the courtyard. And I kind of took a look around as we were walking in. And I looked, so this opening to this big building goes off to the right. You've got kind of like a courtyard here with a fountain in the middle. I could tell there's buildings all the way around. There's some kind of opening back here in the back of the courtyard there. But then above, I just wish I could just show you the picture. I should have drew the picture and put it up on here. But so there's this big, heavy opening, and you've got these big beams that go up and a big, like darker colored beam that goes across this way. And then there's a dome above that. And I was looking at this dome, and it had kind of like a little spear on the top of the dome, and it came down in sections, and then the, kind of like a pumpkin, but raised where the lines are. And that did look very golden when I was looking at that. But it had some kind of texture to it. That was interesting. So what it says here is we went to the meeting room. Everything looked more sandy in color now. It was not so golden. And I kept asking, is this the 6th level of heaven? Because it looks so different than what I'm used to. Everything, the architecture and everything in the area that I'm used to going into meditation is very Grecian, very Roman, just all white stone and pillars and all kinds of things. But Michael said it was the 6th level of heaven. And so as you're walking down, we walk through this long corridor, this long hallway. It's immense, it's huge. And there's these supports, arched supports as you're walking in. They look like they're wood. I mean, everything to this building really looks like it's wood, which is strange. And we come upon these large doors. And they're kind of peaked a little bit, and then they come down like this, and in the middle, and they open up out, and they're big, heavy doors, and I think there's some kind of metal on them. And inside there is a very honey-colored, wooden-looking architecture of like an old church room with a big fireplace in the back. And as you walk in, there's a big, long, kind of like conference table, but very, very carved, very ornate. And the chairs are high-backed and very thick and carved and interesting looking. As you go in, off to your left would be this window. And then next to the fireplace. And then there's more to the room over here, but I hadn't been able to see what that was. And in this trip, they kept saying home. First often I hear somebody say something, and then I hear the word home. I'm like, so I'm not very clear in this place yet, like I am in familiar surroundings. Ramiel said something when I walked in the room about the weekend. This was this was the 18th. Said something about the weekend. I didn't really know what he was talking about. I don't know if he was talking about me coming back here on the weekend. Because I was really tired that night. He said, the weekend, you will see the end. Of what? Or he said, we'll see you again. So I'm not really sure on that. I was very tired that evening. And that was basically all I did. I went there, I focused, I walked in the room. couldn't get much of anything. And so I came back on the 19th of May. And when I noticed the architecture this time, each time I go and I try to see the fountain, I know there's this big statue in this fountain, and I just can't quite make it out. You know, it looks like something comes up like this and that, and then there's a person, and I just can't make it out. I couldn't make it out on this trip. Highlights of this. So what I'll do is I'll come in here and I'll write it down really quick so I don't forget, because it's like going into a dream. And sometimes if you're in there for a long time, like an hour, and you come out, you'll forget a lot of it. So the notes that I jotted down on what they said was document dump coming, emails, trial, George. Someone said George. Public will know. And this was the trip that I noticed the window off to the side of the fireplace. And I went to the window. And before we went into on this meditation, there's kind of like a wooden railing when you're going in to the opening of the building off to my left, I guess it would be when I'm walking in. And I stopped there and I looked down. We were way up high. I mean, way up there. And you could see, like on a mountain, and you could see this water going down, way, way, way down. And Michael said something like, we're very high. I don't think I wrote that down. We're up very high, but we're up very high. And so then I walked in the room and I was looking at this window, and I noticed that the architecture of the place was more, and the word that came to mind was Tibetan. It kind of looked Chinese. But it was different than Chinese. It was different. So the window, I looked out the window, and now this window also had the same peaked architecture and comes down like this and like that, and it's got, you could see the metal in between these little square panes of glass. And so I look down, and again I see the same thing. I see that we're way up high, just kind of like this whole fort like city building structure is up in the mountains, really, really high up. And so then we all sat down, the team. So there was me, and then Gabriel to my right, Chamuel, then Ramiel, and Jesus is at the end of the table. And then we've got Zedekiel, Haniel, and Michael next to me. And so that was when we were sitting, when they gave this info that there would be a document dump coming, emails, trial, and all of that. So I basically asked, excuse me, I basically asked what's coming. And do you have any hope for the people? That's what I always ask them. And I looked at Ramiel, and he nodded. And then all of a sudden, there's all these papers all over the table. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, ugh, they're going to want me to read something. That's really hard. It's really hard in meditation. That's going to be hard. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that, because then I won't be able to see him. And so I asked what these are. And he said that they were emails, and where did I put that other? Anyway, so they were emails, and they were wire transfers, and it was information, and that the public will know and somebody said, "Hello, George." And then I was like, you got my attention. What? What'd you say? Hello, George. And I said, "What are these papers for?" And they said, "It helps the people see the protesters, the rioters, as hired thugs." So I was sitting there, and what I got is that these papers is like a document dump that's coming. And this was before the weekend, so it could have arrived. So it's basically, it was papers from communications and transactions for the past, and I think this is in another, I think I asked, it's probably written down here. We'll get to it, but it's for the last 22 years of between the central banks and their minions that hire and pay for and orchestrate these events, the protests, the big, all kinds of stuff that's going to come out, and in turn affect our politics. It affects what happens in our country and the perception of the people. So then I went back on the 20th and I asked, I should really be better with this. I asked basically same thing. We went in, we sat at the table. Okay. I asked about the primate illness that everyone's talking about. And I said, are people immune from this? Because that was what I got just instinctively. Every time someone has mentioned it over, we've heard it before in the past. And anytime since, I'm like, we're not going to get that. Most people, and it had something to do with chickenpox. Okay, it had something to do with something that we had in an early age that most people are immune to. And I said, are most people immune, and why? Is it like chickenpox? Is it like measles? And what I got is it's a condition of a severely compromised immune system disorder from those that received multiple bad inoculations. And you know what kind I'm talking about recently. This kind of condition is not widespread, but there is mention of this primate illness is a cover-up. It's a cover-up, and it's side effects. So what happens to somebody is that they were telling me, so a person's filtering organs, their immune system is severely compromised. So what they start doing is building up all these toxins in their body. Okay. And so what they told me, and there's other theories out there, but I don't care. That's what they told me. That the body tries to get rid of these toxins any way it can. If so something is compromised, it will try to get rid of it another way. You've got too much of something in your system. And so it's not so much what the bad, jabs put in there. It's that the immune system is compromised and things aren't functioning properly. So you're building up these toxins from everyday life. It's not getting filtered out. Okay. And so what's the biggest organ in your filtering organ in your body? It's your skin. And so then you will start to see these blisters. This has come up in hospitals, and they're trying to explain it away. Oh, Well, it must be the primate illness. Well, here you go. We've got another vaccine for that. I don't think so. But the real primate illness, people who've had the MMR jab are pretty much immune to it. The real one. But that's not what's happening. Now, they may go around trying to infect everybody with the real one, but they know that's not going to work because they know that most people are immune to this kind of virus and probably wouldn't have the same kind of effect. And so what they're doing is they're trying to explain away the side effects, and we will see more explaining away of the side effects coming from this. So I asked, because I said, is there anything coming in the next few days that would warrant truthers to be quiet? Because we had heard some of our favorites. We're just going to take a few days off, and we're told to do so by contacts. And I didn't get any, they wouldn't tell me anything. They just kind of stare at you. When they don't want to tell you something, they don't just stare at you. You know? And so I'm like, okay, I guess that's something I don't need to know. I mean, it's clearly, if those people aren't supposed to be talking, then it's, I guess, maybe I shouldn't either. I said, is there anything bad? You know, is there any reason? They said, no, nothing to fear. I said, okay. So now there's a thing that they want me to learn how to do. Okay. And it's, when I met Archangel Ramiel in the first episode, he told me, I said, oh, you're the angel of hope. And he said, and visions. Made sure I remembered, and visions. And I'm like, okay. And so for some reason, he switched places with Gabriel. And he came and sat with me, and I held his hand. And I knew it was time to do this, right? So I was supposed to retrieve my information. It's time to practice. And I didn't quite trust him, because I haven't known him like I know Michael or Gabriel, all of them. And I was worried that, not so much that he was bad, because I know he's not, and that Jesus is sitting right there, and Michael and Gabriel and everybody, not going to let anything bad happen to me. But there is something about your perception in meditation. And because of free will, you still have some privacy in your thoughts, and you still have some privacy in your perception. And so in between where you project from where you're sitting and where you go in remote viewing, in the same thing, projection of consciousness, same thing. So this is like remote viewing heaven, right? That's what I do. There is an in between. There's like a shaft between you and your projection of consciousness. So as part of yourself goes there, part of you is here. And within that, if you got any bad guys floating around, which they are all over the place most of the time, try to keep them out. But if you don't practice the right protection, if you don't pray beforehand and say, God, please protect me here, there, and in the in between, I ask Archangel Michael to be with me, I'm all over it, right? I don't want to be deceived by some evil thing making me think that he's giving me answers, and I don't want to scare people or anything like that. So I still have a little, it's not that I wouldn't trust him. It's that it's a little scary just to look into an archangel's eyes and let go. And I don't know if I'm being taken somewhere, but he says it's vision. So it feels like you're being taken somewhere. But so I held his hand, then I held Michael's hand. And I was like, that's wrong, isn't it? That's wrong. I'm supposed to be trusting here. That's wrong. But I did it anyway, and I looked into his eyes, and the first thing I see It was war scenes overseas. And that was for Friday. And I thought, well, maybe this is my fear. Maybe I'm doing this wrong. And then I said, do you have any hope for the people? Don't show me something scary all of a sudden. And then I really tried. I took my hand and I held both of his hands and I looked into his eyes. And it's interesting because you let go, right? You trust and you kind of have to let go. You have to let go of your expectations. You could let your walls down and just be there and trust and receive. That is very hard to do. Because as soon as I see something, I pull back because you start thinking. And you can't really think. You have to just be the observer. You just have to absorb what's being sent to you. And the first thing I saw for Friday was a gold coin. I mean, like a really gold coin. It was like, I just kind of saw it flipping this way, saw it, and it was gone. And I pulled back because I'm just like, oh, gold, like, that's good. But that was for Friday. When I asked about Saturday, I tried again and I saw what looked like clouds clearing in that. And it's kind of like I started getting sensations too. So you get that fresh smell, that kind of airy feeling after a storm. And then I saw that these clouds were clearing over the land and they were also clearing over the seas. Storm over seas. And what I heard for Sunday was widespread information. I heard Sussman. I heard wired transfers from foreign governments to him or to the people he represented. What was this? Okay, that was before I left. So I asked about the papers on the table. And this is where I got the more information about the paper on the table. They have to do with money from cabal big banks for all the chaos we have seen for the past 22 years. That's where it is right here. The riots, the misinformation, monies to government's officials, racketeering. Actually heard that. Really not familiar with that. The movement across countries of monies from central bank owners to U.S. government officials. That's what we're going to find out in these papers. Monies to create chaos, maintain control, and that is coming very soon. Whether it's already happened or if this is a big process here, that is coming, and we are going to know that, and the public will know it. I'm talking on like mainstream. We'll know it. And everybody's going to get really mad when that happens. So in this meditation, I stood up and I put my hand down on the papers, and I was like looking at Jesus at the end of the table. And I said, will these people be held accountable for what they've done? In the fall, Jesus said, prison, some before. So as we lead up to the fall, this may be a big, more and more and more and more and more, okay, coming out about this. And like I was saying, Ramiel said that this is an important part of my training. Because I was kind of apologizing that I was resisting that. And he said, well, it's an important part of your training. You must trust to do it. And that takes time. I'm like, you guys are very much too kind. um, okay, so now we're up to 522. Which I believe was yesterday. Anyway, so I met Gabriel, Michael, Haniel, Zedekiel, all of them. Gabriel and Michael took me to the courtyard. And when I asked in the first episode, where is this place that we are? What is this? They said, it's the elder's house. And I'm like, and I remember, I don't know if you guys have listened to my Levels of Heaven, the exploration of the levels of heaven through interdimensional meditation series that is on my website, free. Which I need to go back to each level and redo that whole series. That was a long time ago, but I did speak and have spoken to some elders. I did a Cervasive Iris meditation back in March, I think it was, of 20. And that's who I spoke to. And they referred to themselves as a certain trait, a certain emotion, like one was intellect and one was patience. And the one I spoke to, interestingly enough, back then, and got all the information about what was going to happen, pretty accurate. Not completely, but pretty accurate. He called himself, I said, who are you? And he said, patience. And I'm like, that's interesting. So this time I went to the courtyard, and each time I go, I try to tune in a little bit more. I try to look at the surroundings. I try to get a little bit more familiar because, sometimes, we just keep doing that until you don't have to do it anymore. It's just very, it helps with the entire surroundings and being clearer. So if you're not concerned about where you are and what it looks like and stuff, you can really focus on what's being said. And so each time I go back, I try to tune in a little bit more and understand what the surroundings look like. And this time I was really looking around, and I'm like, this is just so strange that the architecture is just so different from what I'm used to. And I said, and I looked at Gabriel, and he's in the courtyard just watching me. And they always watch me like I'm like a child there. They're just so kind and patient with me. I'm like a child, and they just watch me like you would watch. Oh, isn't that cute? Look at her learning something over there. So I looked at Gabriel and I said, why do we come to this place to train? It looks like Tibetan. And he said, Himalayas. And I'm stupid. So I'm like, where are the Himalayas? And you're going to trip out. You're going to trip out when I look this up later. Okay. He said, Himalayas. And he looked at me and he said, it's your birthplace. And I went, what life? I mean, what are you talking about? Like when? My birthplace? I don't understand. I said, dude, why would we train here? I don't even know what we're training for first of all, but do many people train here? And he said, we trained you here. Well, that'll make you think for the rest of your life. They trained me for what and when and how and what, who and what and where and what. And he said, look at the sky. And so I looked up at the sky, and I'm trying to see the sky. And you see, this is when they're asked, for those that are taking my meditation classes, when you're asked to look at something, really just pull back. Just don't try. Because when you try, you're thinking. And if you're thinking, you're creating. And if you're creating a scene, and that's how you dream. So I couldn't see it at first. I mean, and then all of a sudden, I saw the color, and right when I saw the color, he said, "It's green." And I said, "It is green. That's weird." But it wasn't all green. It was like this, almost like the what is it called? Aurora Borealis, or the Northern Lights. It kind of looked like that. It was weird. And I'm like, okay, that makes no sense either. I don't know what's going on here. And he said, "Look at the sky. This place is special. It's green." Um, and I said, "Why would you train me again to remember?" He said, "To remember, your memory has been wiped." I said, "So I have to start all over?" I said, "No, your memory will recover." I said, "Why was my memory wiped clean?" And he said, "To come into your life." And I said, and he interrupted me. He said, "Or you would never have left here. Would never have left." Um, Why wouldn't I leave? Too scary? I asked. And um, he said, "Oh no, you're very brave." And I'm like, I am kind of brave sometimes, but I don't know about that. I was that brave. I said, "Then why?" He said, "It's to separate your heart from your home." And that's why people, when they go into a life, you can't remember. Because you go into a life to be a certain somebody and to do a certain thing. And if you remembered your home and how great it was and how much you love it and all your loved ones and everything else, you wouldn't come. It's very necessary. And so when people are on a spiritual journey, they're not just learning new things, they're remembering what they already know. So it's in there. You just have to get past the programming. You just have to let yourself believe that you are more than the programming. And then he looked at me, and I was just kind of absorbing everything and thinking, and he looked at me and he goes, and he was talking about him and the archangels. He said, "We had to be strangers that you re-met. We had to be." And so back to the whole Himalayas thing. Okay? Let me explain something to you. The way that these dimensions are set up. So let's say, and I think that's why they call it the multiverse. So heaven, on earth in heaven, because heaven is the whole universe, and I believe each level of heaven is the whole universe again. It's a different vibrational level of the same thing in different states. Okay? And so a long time ago in one of the meditations, there was this in the whole complex there with the house and the courtyards and the rose gardens and the gazebo and the tree and the fields and the river and the mill. There's this place up above the rose gardens in my normal area. They call it my house, my property. It's probably not. It's probably theirs. Probably Gabriel's. There is up many very high platform up all these concrete, there's probably stone steps. I mean, like a million steps. And at the top of it, there's a Parthenon, like the Parthenon, right? With the pillars, and you go in there. There's not much in there. There's like some seating areas and stuff. But Gabriel and I many times would go and sit at the top of the steps, and we would talk in meditation. When I would talk about personal things, and I was learning things years ago, and you could look out over the whole area. And I asked him one time, when I was learning things about, the multiverse and the levels of heaven and stuff, and I asked him one time, "So where would we be in this spot on Earth. Where's the spot on Earth then that we're sitting right now? And I was so surprised at his response. He said, India. Like, India? I've never been to India. I've never had any desire to go to India. I mean, you'd think it would be where I live right now. I mean, India. Really? And that kind of made sense. It kind of made sense later because the trees are different. And some of the shrubs and everything is different. It's just different, you know? And I thought that was cool. And then, then he says Himalayas, right? So then I have to look it up because I don't remember anything about geography really. And so I have to look it up. So I look it up, okay? The Himalayas stretch across the northeastern portion of India. And I stopped. I was just like, then I remembered back then, I'm like, oh, because I totally forgot that. And I wasn't aware. I thought that, the Himalayas were like, I didn't know it stretched that far over. And it does. And then I'm walking in this courtyard that seems to be kind of like Chinese, Tibetan, kind of. And I never would have made it that way. I would have just made it the same way that I was used to seeing. I would have seen pillars and all kinds of things. And then I looked down through the window and over the railing, and it were way up there. And I was like, that's totally real. This is totally real. All of this is real. I mean, I was just like, I love that. I love that when I've forgotten something and then I get another piece of information that matches up with something from years ago. I love that. I'm like, okay. All right. I'm not making all this up. That's too good. That is too good. That was cool. So I came into this life and I forgot, like every single one of you. And Gabriel told me a long time ago when they first came, and I'm like, oh, great. I was widowed. I wasn't seeing them with my physical eyes, but it was a really strong mind's eye. And I could turn it off and on, and it wasn't like, I'm like, great, I'm schizophrenic now. Perfect. I'm widowed, and I'm raising 2 children, and I'm schizophrenic, No. And it took me a long time and working with somebody who's very knowledgeable about all kinds of spiritual things. He's like an encyclopedia of knowledge. That's who I started doing the first radio show with. He started meditating with the Hemisync. At the time was a set of all these CDs, and he gave it to me, and I thought it was boring. It's too slow. And so he would go through all these levels of consciousness to get to where I was at. And I just go. And we'd go into meditation. We'd have the same questions for the archangels. We'd come back and we exchange emails. So we didn't communicate. It's kind of like Mike, a little bit like what Mike and I do on Real News Live. I don't read his book, and he gives me crap for it like every day. But there's a reason for that, because when I worked with this individual, and I'm not going to give you his name because I don't know if he'd want me to. We would do that. And I wanted it that way. I didn't want it tainted. I needed to know if this was real. I needed to know if this was accurate. And so he would go in with the same question. And I think I've told you guys this story before, but it's very interesting. At one point, I didn't trust him because it was matching up too good. His answers, they're going to come through your perception. You're going to translate it into language. Spirit and archangels, when you're home, we communicate with thought. So it doesn't matter what language you speak. It will be translated into your mind in the language that you wish. So his answers to the questions were more scientific, Mine were more emotional. Mine were like beautiful. And he's like, you just said the exact same thing as I did. But, like you were telling me a bedtime story. Like, I know. That's I'm over there squeezing everybody's hand and hugging everybody, and he's standing there just getting information. That's very interesting. Thank you very much. But we would go and see Archangel Michael. And one time I'm like, this is matching up too closely. He's got to be, I don't know how he's doing it, but he's got to be tricking me somehow. And so I went to Michael in meditation and I told him, listen, I need to know if this is real, right? We're going to have a code word. I'm going to send him in here to talk to you. If you give him that code word and he emails me back and I hear it, I said, the code word is yellow. He goes, okay. So I email him and I say, somebody wants to talk to you. Tell me what they said. So he goes into meditation and I'm just sitting there waiting. And I get this email back and it says, I don't know what you wanted me to do here. He said, but I went in and I saw Archangel Michael and he looked at me and he said yellow and told me to leave. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. And I'm like, okay. All right. So I like it when they use different words that I wouldn't normally use. I'd like it when things match up from years before that I'd forgotten about, because it just, for me personally, it gives credibility to the situation. I've always been a very rational person. I've been, very responsible person. And I need that. So, in this meditation, we're back to, let's see, where were we? He was telling me about you had to separate from the situation. And so, I don't know if I came full circle with my point there, but you see the importance of testing this out. And if you're doing the meditation classes now, it's really good to work with a partner. Once you get the knack of it, work with a partner. And do that. Like Mike and I haven't read his book. Most of the time I don't give him my notes until right before the show. I'm not pulling from what he knows. I'm coming in there and saying, well, this is probably totally out there and I have no idea how this is going to turn out, but I'm just going to say it, right? And then he'll listen to what I'm saying, and sure enough, he's got something that he already knows or that's in his book that matches up with that, and I love that. So in this meditation, I was trying to see the fountain, and this is interesting. So it almost looks like, so there's a round base to this fountain that you could sit on, right? And everything's all kind of like the same color as the sandiness of the cobblestones. And I look up and it almost looks like there's maybe wings that come up right here. And all of a sudden I see this flash and it looked like an angel writing in a book to me. But it doesn't match up really with what Michael told me it was. I said, and this is how you can it's kind of like when you look in the clouds and one person sees an eagle and another person sees a, I don't know, a duck, or no, not a duck, like a dog or something totally different. And I asked what it was. And he said, it's migration of the spirit. I was not thinking that. I was not thinking that at all. What does that mean? I said, I don't understand that. And he just, sometimes they don't give you all the answers. They want you to figure things out. So that's a thinker. That's something I'm going to think about. And he didn't tell me. Migration of the spirit. So it's a representation of migration of the spirit. And I said, I'll try again another time. Each time I go in, I'll try to look at the fountain again, and I'll try to see what's actually there. So this time we walked down the hallway in the big to the big meeting room, and I wanted to stop in front of the door because you can sense outside the building goes on to the right for quite a while. It's very big. And I wanted to look down this way and see what else there was to look at because it kept just taking me straight into the same room. And let's see. And then Gabriel actually told me no, which is interesting because he never does that. He told me no, and he said, "Not yet. You're not ready." I'm like, okay. So this whole thing is very confusing. So we continued in through the large double doors. This is very personal. Okay. I don't want any judgment on this, all right? None. It's very sensitive. Not really. But he says, now pay attention now. There's someone here to see you. I'm like, oh crap, this is gonna be hard. I have to stop doing that because but that's the first thing you think. It really is. And I walked in and I saw a very bright, white-haired young woman standing at the back next to the fireplace. And she had like this light coming out of her. Like you could see it. I didn't really see it on the archangels. I'm used to them. But this really had this light coming out of her. So different. And she had like this long white dress on it, kind of like, A-lined out, very tall. And I got this like nervous, almost like wanna cry, weird feeling. Like homesick, weird feeling. She had this really thick white hair and it went all the way down her back in this huge braid. And she kind of reminded me of like Elsa on the Frozen movie. And like her dress, like kind of sparkled. So I think that, well, I'll tell you what I think in a minute. I was confused for a moment and I kind of like stood there and like side looked at Gabriel and I said, "This is me, isn't it?" And he said, "Yeah." What a weird thing to see. I have spoken to my true self before, and everybody has a true self. Your true identity, the biggest part of you is still at home. You only project part of your consciousness here to incarnate. You're so much more than you ever thought you were. And so there's me. And I looked at her and I just kind of like slowly walked up to her and she looked a little different. She looked much better than I do. Okay. Much better than I do. And, and side note, she had like really large chest area. And I was like, that would have been nice. That would have been a nice thing to add in to this lifetime to give me a little more joy. Thanks. But I looked at her eyes and they were mine. That was the one thing. Right around here, it was the same. And it was just the weirdest sensation. It was the weirdest. It was almost like talking to a stranger, back and forth. Stranger, me. Stranger, me. Weirdest emotions. Another thing happened. Before I walked up to her, And I asked Gabriel, I said, that's the real me, isn't it? And he said, yes, call her name. Just like that. And I know her name, but I'm not going to tell you because I've been told not to. So I called her name. And she said yes. And then I walked up to her. And she said the weirdest thing. She said, the true essence of your soul will emerge now. You have been in the dark too long, and now it's time to see. And I was like, I've been in the dark? Because I'm pretty out there, you know? And I'm like, okay. And then she put her hands on the side of my face, and this soft yellow light fell over me. And I knew what she was doing because I've done it before. I've done it without knowing what I'm doing in the healings. I've done it without knowing what I'm doing when we're crossing souls over. It's called showering them in grace. And what this does, so let's say you got an earthbound spirit and you go in with the angels in this house and they won't go because they're confused. They're like, no, I can't. You don't know what I've done. I won't be accepted, blah, blah, blah. They're stuck in this endless time of negative thinking or their own hell, pretty much. And just for a moment, you shower them in this grace, right? And all of a sudden, they see the angels. But before that, they just think somebody talking to them. They wouldn't see it. They see my guardian angel, Nancy, who always crosses the earthbound spirits over. But just for a moment, it breaks them out of it. So they're like, wait a minute. Or they'll see Jesus. Grace opens the eyes up to the truth, and it opens the eyes up to God. She did that to me. So it basically peels back the layers and allows you to be clear of mind and see. Next page. I already said that. See, I have to follow the notes or I get lost. And then I said, I accept. So sometimes things go on when you start these meditations. You will say things, you will do things and you don't really know why. And then I felt strange. Like I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. It was just kind of like an emotional release. I didn't laugh or cry, but it was just like that weird feeling. And then I started talking about the kids. I started talking about the kids, and I said, and really some really personal things. And she hugged me. And she basically said, you don't have to be afraid anymore. Your story begins now. And I'm like, and that surprised me more than anything. I'm like, now? What about everything I did before? I mean, I thought I was doing pretty good. I thought I was pretty far along in this spiritual journey, and you never are you? It never ends. Just when you think you're getting pretty good at something, there's something new. So what she wanted me to accept now is who I really am. So what they need me to do is to stop holding back. And you've seen it from me. When I'm over here and then I'm just like, I'll make a joke about something or I'll pull back from it and I'm like, oh, that's going to be hard. Or maybe, maybe this isn't real, maybe this isn't right, maybe this isn't this, or maybe this isn't that, and maybe, whatever. Apparently, I'm not supposed to do that anymore. I'm just supposed to go in, open arms, and trust. And some of you have been on this trust journey with me for a while now. It's not always pretty. It's not always pretty. And so this whole vision practice with getting these visions from Archangel Ramiel of hope and passing that on, that's interesting. I'm sure it will become more specific later. But as of now, I think it's really symbolic just because of my hesitation. It's a very intimate kind of thing that lets somebody completely take your mind and show you things. And so then she gave me a silver wide band ring, and she put it on the middle finger of my right hand. And it looked I said, "What is this?" And she said, "This is mine. It helps me see. It'll help you." And then she poof disappeared. I mean, there wasn't really a poof, but it's just gone. Gone. And so I'm looking down at this ring, and it's a flat, wide silver band, kind of like a man's wedding ring would be. But there's some kind of like looping, ribbony kind of design on it. And I'm going to have to look at that later and figure out what that is. I don't know if it's writing. It didn't look like writing. It just basically looked like some kind of design. And I was startled when she left because it was almost like somebody woke you up really fast, like, and then I looked at everybody around the room. Oh, here's another thing that's really personal. Okay, so there's a question that I have. It is not an uncommon common thing for somebody to be of angelic origin, of other kinds of origins. We are all human right now, but that's not. I'm starting to think maybe everybody's an angel over there, but I don't know yet. I asked her. I said, "Am I an archangel?" Because all these people I'm talking to, they're archangels. I don't really talk to a lot of guides. I don't think I have a lot of guides. It's just all archangels, So look, all these years, I'm like, am I an archangel? And she said, she just kind of looked at me and she said, "You are an angel of grace, and that is all you need to know." And I'm like, okay, all right, that's good enough. And so then Jesus walks up to me, and I'm standing there kind of startled by the whole thing, talking to my real self and all that. And I said, why are you all archangels? Of course, he's not. Why are all archangels and I'm not? Why would I be working with you? And he said the most amazing thing to me. He says, you have a very special team because you had a very special dream. And we're helping you achieve that for humanity. So I said, so this was my plan and you're helping me? You wanted to be there during this time and help mankind to believe. And this is the beginning. I'm like, yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I would do that. I would want to do that. I'd probably come up with a totally awesome plan. And then I was just like, that's really, I can handle that. That's really cool, For me, in my reality, in my life, in my little spot in the world, it's not like I've come to save the world and I'm so great. It's just for my life and what I've written for myself to do, this makes sense. This makes sense. You wanted to be there during this time to help mankind to believe. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's probably at the basis of everything that I do. Is at the, if you guys take a look at all the things that I do, I am a broken record about that. I am. So that makes sense. And then I said, how is this the beginning if I've been doing this for a while? I mean, then he kind of laughs at me, doesn't like at me, but like, he says, you were just getting your feet wet. I'm like, okay, so I think I'll let go of all the worries about procrastination over the years and, perceived failures and things like that. So, let's start from here on. I just said, don't let me fail, please. Don't let me fail. Whatever it is I'm supposed to do. He said, that's why you're here. And he asked me to sit down. And so I went to the table. And I glanced across the table at Ramiel and then at Jesus and told Jesus, I said, I'm going to have to trust Ramiel completely to deliver messages for the people, aren't I? And I said, and I explained my concerns that I explained to you earlier about, it's not that I wouldn't trust you and I wouldn't trust that you're protecting me. It's that aspect of this where you could be deceived in if you're not careful. And I just ask that they don't let that happen. And he basically looked at me, Ramiel, and said, you can trust me. I will not let that happen. And I'm still a little bit like, Michael, do you want to say that to me? So it's like, this is hard. It's like growth. You really just going to have to take the leap, And we hear about these leaps of faith. Let me mark my spot. We hear about these leaps of faith in religion. We hear about them all over the place, and at certain points, times in our lives when, we decide to get married, become parents, take a risk, do something like that. We're asked to do that. We're asked to take a leap of faith. And I really think that what's going on here with this is that little by little, they're just, everything that I have learned about them and the way they deal with people is it's all choices. Your entire life is a series of one choice after another. And so I think what they're waiting for me to do is to really choose to let go of that doubt and let go of that negative, information or negative opinion I might have. The fear, there really is no place for fear in this. We have grown as a society so accustomed to doubt everything, to fear everything before we believe in anything. There's always the fear. And people, when they don't believe, they'll give you all these reasons, all these fearful reasons why they don't. When you find somebody that really believes, it's not that they're fearless, but they don't have as much. And they don't have like all these reasons why they shouldn't, because they've let them go. And I think that's what I need to do. So it's like a self journey, like stop blocking yourself. Like you already know how to do this. You just have to allow yourself to do it. And I'm pretty sure that applies to everybody here. And so, and this is cool. That's why I love them so much. Ramiel said, you can trust me. I will not let that happen to you. And then Michael leaned in because I'm sitting next to him and he goes, Neither will I. I'm like, okay. Thank you, because you know I was thinking that, right? And so it's like, so this time I held both of his hands. Ramiel, sitting next to me now. I held both of his hands and I looked deep into his eyes and I saw what looked like us standing. And this is what I told you guys this morning on Real News Live. Okay. So then here's the comedy of my life, right? So we go through all of this, right? And I'm like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. I can believe and I can trust and I can do this. And all of a sudden, I'm standing in the middle of this like burnt looking field. And my thoughts go wild because I'm like, this doesn't look heavenly to me. You know, this is not. Probably should have slipped this one in like 3 or 4 other, you know, peaceful and beautiful visions later. But I'm standing in what, and I think maybe that was just dark, but there wasn't a lot of foliage. I could see like little sticks coming up, and so it looked burnt. I said, what is this? Alaska pipeline, retrigger. Made no sense at all. And I said, okay, so I pull out. Then I looked at him again, and he said, abortion ruling signed. Or I heard it. I don't know if he said it because I was looking in his eyes, and you kind of like, so I'm looking in his eyes, and all of a sudden everything just kind of goes white. Then there's the vision. It's weird. And so then I said, okay. I don't know what to ask here. I don't know what. So I was trying to get information for the news show, what's coming this week. And so I said, let's do one day at a time. I said, okay, so what I heard before, is that for Monday? I'm not sure. But when I asked about Monday, I tried again. Then I'm standing, and it's really cool. It was like all of a sudden, my perception is that I am standing just outside, kind of probably like on this walk-up area, ramp, something, Route Rushmore. And I can see him standing next to me on the peripheral. And I'm looking up at Mount Rushmore. Now, I've never been there. And he said, release. And I'm like, I say, this is so different than the way I'm used to receiving information. I would ask a question, they would give me an answer. I said, can you be more specific? And they're more specific. Why can I say that? So this is more symbolic, the way this is happening. And I'm thinking it's going to get better when I learn to let go and just let it happen. Saw Mount Rushmore, heard release. Monday, it's also something about, today was also something about abortion ruling. So I think we did hear about that today, which is the 23rd of May. So then I said Tuesday. And the rest of this, I didn't see a lot, except a radio. So for Tuesday, I said, okay, Tuesday. And he looks right at me. He says, silence. But I wasn't saying anything. At first, I was kind of like, is he talking to me? But I don't think he wasn't talking to me. The title for Tuesday is silence. Like, that's what we will see. And then I saw a radio, like an old radio or a weather radio, a portable radio, like an FM radio, FM AM. So that could mean that Tuesday we hear nothing, or that there's a blackout. I'm leaning towards the blackout. We'll see. Wednesday, because Wednesday he said limited communications and contacts. Limited communication and contact. So if we go black on Tuesday, that would make sense for Wednesday. Then Thursday is a whole mishmash of things that don't make any sense. So we got 4 words for Thursday from him. Relief. Like, oh, what a relief it is. Relief. Pensions. Tomahawk. And missions. And then my mind goes wild. And then I'm thinking, okay, if it's blackout on Tuesday, or if there's an abortion ruling on Monday, and then everybody goes crazy on Tuesday and they black out everything, then Wednesday, if there's limited communications, that would mean there was a blackout on Tuesday. And then if there's tomahawk, so when he said tomahawk, I didn't think of the hatchet, okay? I didn't think of missiles. I thought of an aircraft. And then when I put it up on Telegram, I'm like, what do you think of when, I say tomahawk or something like that? And Mike put up this aircraft and bing, that's what it was. That's what it was. I'm pretty sure. Then again on Friday, I heard limited communication. So pretty sure we're talking about this week. Pretty sure. That's what I got. So we'll see. Might want to make sure you have enough batteries in the house. I don't know. So I asked Jesus after this. I kind of looked over at him because I was getting tired. It's hard to do. Something about that. Usually when I talk to angels, I go into meditation, I just get like antsy, like I can't sit still and stay in there that long. Same with the healings. I'll be in for like an hour and then I got to get up, take a break, go back in, and do more. But I said, are things really happening this week to take our country back? And Jesus said, yes. It's really interesting, the demeanor in while sitting around the table. It's very serious. It's like, and sometimes, the archangels, when I go to see them, they'll just be very joyful, very laughing, but very serious. Jesus sits at the end of the table and he's very serious. Always loving. Never like he's scolding or anything like that. None of them are like that. But you could, with a seriousness. And I said, what about the RV? Everybody's going to ask me about the RV. I can't do anything. Everybody's always, when's the RV? When's this going to happen? When am I going to get my money? Basically, everybody's always asking me that. I said, what about the RV? And he said, 1 week until full transition. Jesus said that. 1 week until full transition. I'm like, thank God. I can't wait till this is over. People stop asking me about it. And then another thing, document dumps will continue. Dropping, admissions coming. Senator is what I initially heard. I assumed it was probably senators, but senator. And then Jesus, I said, is there anything else you want to tell me? And he said, listen to the skies. Not look at the skies, not notice the skies, listen. So we're listening for anything, any booms, any incomings, anything out of the ordinary. Be observant in your reality. Doesn't mean bombs are dropping. Doesn't mean we're going to go to war. You're going to hear a lot of fearful things out there right now just to keep people in their place. All right, today I went back in. Needless to say, I'm kind of tired after this week, So I asked if I could go. So usually, a lot of times when I would go to the garden, which is the 7 level of heaven, it is very hard to. They had to take me there, and I was very aware that we walk through some kind of threshold to get there. Um, in some meditations, and I actually have the interdimensional meditations on my website right now for a limited time. Um, that teaches that. Um, so they would take me to. I assumed that they were taking me to this place because it was probably a higher vibration, but within the same spectrum of vibration that you have in a certain dimension. So, like the 6th level of heaven. I have been to places, even within the house that I normally go to, that are very high vibration and very hard to see. Almost looks like looking through water. You have to adjust to it. You have to keep going back. You have to get used to it. Um, I it used to be like that, but now I kind of can go back in there. Yeah, I actually, last couple times I went in there, it wasn't really that difficult. So, um, when you keep going back there and you stay centered with the divine, you stay, God centered, for the most part. I mean, you're still going to be sarcastic and have bad days, and your mind's going to say, call people names and things like that, but a lot less, a lot less after a while. Um, but unless it's funny, if it's funny, that's okay. So I asked if this time I could just go straight there, because it kind of takes a lot of time. I go to the field, I call them, they come and get me, we go, and I'm like, can I just go to the field? And when I asked before, they said no. This time they said yes. And I think it's probably because I've adjusted to the vibration of the place a little more. And so I was able to go. But the interesting part was I went straight. I didn't go where we normally enter just right in the middle of the courtyard next to the fountain. I was on the outside of the place, and there's like a dirt road that goes into this place. Okay, there's this huge thing. The whole thing looks like a fort, which is weird, with these big walls all the way around this area. Okay, and so I'm standing out, a few feet of dirt that I noticed. Okay, this is the cobblestones are in there. They're not out here. This is dirt. And then I walk in, big square opening, no doors. At least I didn't notice any doors, or they were open. And this time, let's see. So when I entered the courtyard, I saw the cobblestones. Michael, Ramiel, and Zadikiel were by the fountain in the middle waiting for me. And then as I walked in, Haniel just came, he comes in and swoops down and lands, which I love it when they do that. Chamiel just kind of walks and was not there, but then was there. But that was neat. And then I'm like, where's Gabriel? And I look over and he's right there. So it's like everybody just kind of came in. And I told him, I need more hope for the people. Do we need to go into the meeting room, or can we talk here? Ramiel nodded, that we needed to go into the room. And so we proceeded to the room, and I walked in, and I wanted to see the rest of the room. And this is a really cool story. So listen, it's personal, but it's cool. So I had seen and got accustomed to this part of the room where the table is and the fireplace and the window and that certain area, but I knew that it was a bigger room, and I could see some kind of light source off over here. And so when I walked in, I really didn't have an agenda, and there wasn't anybody new to meet. And so I said, just spent a little time, and I just walked over and I said, I just kind of want to get a sense of this room to see what else is in it. So it's like a peripheral thing. You can see the room, you know that it's a bigger room, but you don't really see what's in it. So I was walking around, and it was still kind of hard. And I'm like, trying not to think, well, what would be in a room like this? And I'm like, all right, I'm thinking too much. So I went and I followed the light source, and it's another window, same kind of window. And again, I look down, and this time I see way down there, I see grassy fields. So you've got rocks, and I didn't really see the water from there, but I did see like grassy fields down there. I'm like, yep, we're up high. And so then I turn around and I look at the rest of the room. And over in the corner, and everybody's just kind of standing around watching me, see what I'm going to do. Over in the corner, I saw a desk. At least I thought it was a desk. It was like, rectangular shape, but like heavy, like carved and dark wood and like. So I started walking over there, and I'm like, is that a desk? Is that what I'm seeing? And I'm like, yeah, it's a big, wide desk. It has some kind of big metal buttons around the edge of it, or either that or it was carved or something. And so then I went, and there's like the big high back, same kind of looking chairs over there. So I sat in it, and I sat at the desk, and there's nothing on it. And then all of a sudden I look over and I see this inkwell, and it's got a pen coming at it. It's got a big white feather. Not like a floppy feather, but a straight feather. And then I look down, and there's this long piece of paper, probably, longer than this. But it's not paper. It's like scroll. Like you could roll it up into a scroll. It's kind of like wheat colored. You can kind of see through it a little bit. And I'm like, and I sat there for a minute, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with this. And hang on, let me find this part because this is good. Michael said, give it a minute. You'll know. And so I'm sitting there with this feather and with the scroll. And then all of a sudden, I was thinking about what she said with what the true self said before. And I was like, and then I started writing. And so I've never written with like a pen like that, but I've seen people do it on movies. So I just kind of dipped it in there. But you have to dip it in there like after every sentence, by the way. And then I'm just, I had the most immense feeling of love. Like what I was saying was just coming out right through my chest onto there. And I didn't quite know what I was doing. But what I wrote was, let's see. And then the people were free. Their hearts swelled with joy, and all their burdens were lifted. They could see the evil around them leave. And that is when they knew the true meaning of life, love, and the pursuit of happiness. Let it be. And then I was like, then I put it, okay, emotional. And I put the pen back in there, and I was like, no. That felt really good. That felt really good. And I looked at Michael and I said, what did I just do? And he said, create. And then I got chills all over my body. Not there, but where I was sitting here. And I mean, like deep ones. When you hear somebody, like I've always done this, like when you hear somebody with a really exceptional voice or an exceptional talent, that I'll get chills everywhere. I'm like, create for me. He said, create for all in your reality. And I said, those words came from my very core. I mean, I felt that. As I said, is that what you meant when you told me that I would learn to write on my first visit? And somebody in the room, because it was weird. It was almost kind of like I think I was getting tired, or I just had like an emotional experience. Someone in the room said, yes, it is a process of creation. And then I remembered. I said, you tried to teach me this before, like twice. Yes, but you resist change, Michael said. Well, yes, I do. I do resist change. Yes, I do. I'm very good at that. And I said, and I'm not resistant now. And they all kind of, Michael says, I wouldn't say that. Then I hear the laughter in the room. He says, you chose the change this time. And that's the difference. Because I remember there was a time we were in the mill. If you guys watched before, I told you about the mill. It's like this big, dark colored wooden house on the river, the stream, and it's got one of those water wheels on it. And I remember one time I went into the mill and they sat me down with paper. And this is a very personal thing. This is about my personal life. And yes, I'm going to teach you all to do this someday, but I have to learn how to do it right first. And they wanted me to write down what I wanted to see in these situations. And afterwards, I was either supposed to, I can't remember if it was, and so it is, or, you like, amen. And I remember that, and I remember doing it, but I think that maybe at that time, I was too close to the situations. It was the kids, it was money, it was all these things. It's all these things that I was worried about. And I wouldn't let go of that. I wouldn't let go of that worry enough to create the positive outcome. And then I'm like, all right, let me try again. And it was just the weirdest thing. It was the weirdest thing. It was like, there's the conscious me, right? The one who kids around and talks and is sarcastic and thinks and, and makes excuses and all that stuff. But then, like, when I sat there with that pen on that paper and I just really, it's almost like it's just like like floodgates open. And what I wrote, I felt every word of that. It wasn't like, and I win $1 million. It was like truth. It was like pure, honest truth. And then I wrote again. It will come to be known as the greatest triumph ever for generations to come. They will know that God is real and he won, and so it is. Did you feel that? I felt that just again. That one, both of those. And then Michael said, you are remembering. I'm like, I get an A for the day. I get a gold star. I get something for this. And I said, well, I teach people to do this. He says, once you've learned to put all the pieces back together. And I said, okay. He said, it can never be done from manipulation and must come from the depths of the soul for the good of others. Then it's real. So I got up, but I wanted to write more. I started thinking, well, there's so many things I could write right now, and it was just like, no, we were done with that. I wanted to be careful about my thoughts. I didn't want to push it. I didn't want to be greedy. I didn't want to do any of that. I mean, I just knew that they showed me something there, but I did it. They didn't tell me to do anything. I did it. It was like I knew it, but I didn't know it. And then a long time ago, I woke up in the morning from a dream. God, must have been like, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I woke up and I saw this big blue banner. It was my color blue. You guys know what my color blue is. It's right behind me. And white writing, and it said, "The seventh element." And there were all these books on the table. And there were people all around. So it looked like a convention or something. And then I got up and I was like, I have never read anything in a dream. And I realized that at the time. And I went into meditation and I asked, Uriel was there. And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "I gave that to you. It's a glimpse. It's a glimpse of the future." And I said, "What is the seventh element?" He says, "You'll find out." And so over the years, all I know so far, after all these years, that's why I figured this is probably my masterpiece someday. Don't take my title, okay? My masterpiece someday is what I'm really supposed to do, I think. The seventh element, from what I've gathered so far, it is the light. It is love. It is the element that houses all others. It is the element of creation, and it is intelligent. And so, what I'm supposed to do is learn how to teach people to consciously create, not just like, positive thinking. That's definitely a road to there, but actually consciously create here like we do at home. And in order for that to happen, I know we're going into a direction where our vibration gets to a point where we can do that. However long that takes. Good news. If I succeed, it's within my lifetime. So, so once I've learned to put all the pieces back together, and I wanted to write more. And then I looked at Gabriel and I was so moved by that situation. I wasn't crying or anything. Sometimes I cry a lot when I'm over there. You just can't help it. It's usually like a beautiful cry. And I looked at Gabriel and I said, I remember saying many times that all I ever wanted to do was be love without all the restraints. And in that moment, I felt that way. And he said, all you ever wanted to be is you. This is the way you can and you will. He said, there are predators where you are, and a person must be cunning to adapt and survive. And that goes against your very nature and is hard for you. Then I was going to leave, and then Zadika comes over, and he's like, okay, sit down. I'm like, oh, I'm tired. So then we all sat at the table. And I said, what would you like me to know today? And he said, no meeting tomorrow. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, you need to absorb what has been learned, rest, and reflect. Come back on Wednesday. And I said, okay. I said, well, I have readings and healings to do tomorrow, but that's fine. He said, that's fine. Too much training will stall your progress. And so this is an important part for all of you. A lot of people that are on a spiritual journey and they're trying to learn things, they're trying to do it really fast, they're trying to progress. What level am I at now? It's not about that. If you, like I've always said, if you read a whole book all at once, it's one thing they've taught me, and that's what I've experienced over the years, and they taught me other things. If you read a whole 700-page book at once, How much are you going to remember? How much are you really going to know? This kind of stuff you need to know. You need to absorb it. You need to use it. You need to sit with it. And you can't learn everything at once. And so that's why the spiritual journey is a process. Sometimes life gets in the way. Sometimes you have to devote your attention to other things. But don't rush it. And so in order to do this weekly show, and I've along with the other shows and the healings and the readings and the everything else, they saw that I'm getting a little tired. I tend to do that. I tend to burn the candle at both ends because that's fun, and I do that. But I was reminded, okay, take a day off. Don't come in tomorrow. Either that or everything goes down tomorrow, and I'm really hoping for that. We'll see. And I said, do you have anything else for the people before I leave? And Ramio looked at me and he said, and he looks like Superman, so it's really cool when he talks. And he says, tell them everything will be fine. And I said, with what? And he said, the world. And then I left. So that is this week's meditation reveal on Jen's spiritual journey with the new team. You can see why I'm a little apprehensive to share everything. I have not shared everything, but most of it I want to, because I want you to understand, not just for me and I'm so great, blah, blah, blah. I really try to resist that. That's not productive. That's not a productive energy to stay in. One of ego. That's mean it's really something you try to. But like I've said before, what I've never suffered with the ego. I've suffered with the self-esteem. And so there's a fine line there. Having enough confidence, and trusting enough to be efficient without stepping over that line in the ego. So for those of you that have been taking the meditation classes, I hope this helped you. Start documenting everything that you do, because it is like stepping into a dream state, and you will start to forget. When I spoke to my true self, that was fading really fast. I had to take a break, write it all down. It was fading really fast, and I don't know what that's about, but that's interesting. So good luck to you all, and I would love to hear about your personal experiences in meditation. Anybody would like to share them with me? Those of you who'd like to get the class, you can go to jenniferfallaw.com. Where's my banner? Bink. There we go. Right now, and it's very self-explanatory, I will send you a 6 videos, about 12 hours long, of me talking to you just like this. Mike's on there too. We did them together. And you can start your journey this way if you'd like. I believe everybody can do it. I think that the soul is limitless. There's absolutely no reason why you have to be special or some kind of, every one of you will be this special in your meditations, and every one of your lives and your journeys is as special as the next. And they all come together in the conglomerate of souls who came here right now in order to make a difference in their own way for whoever comes to them, even if it's just being a good dad or mom. So I want to say, I bless you all. Thank you for joining me. Share this if you liked it. I'm going to get going. I think you can tell I'm a little frazzled. I'm a little tired now of the day. And we'll see you next time. I will probably do the next show. Let's see, next Monday's Memorial Day, isn't it? Probably Tuesday. All right. Thank you all.